A lot of pretty good ones here, so I'll try to do as many as I can. We might need to take a little bit of a break in between though. Alright, so Sacred Valley, top tier, T71. So I typically like scouting through this middle here from this side. It's a rather low risk move because you can spot these guys coming through here, and you have a lot of, there's some, basically you can passive spot there, and there's a lot of cover around there for you to just back out. I generally don't find playing the south side of this map to be particularly useful. Not that it's not entertaining to fight here, like many places on maps. This is sort of the way that I feel like Wargaming likes to design their maps. This is an entertaining place to fight, but it is not an entertaining place to fight out of. So while you might win over on this side, pushing through here or pushing through this other side, depending on which side wins, is not necessarily as useful. You can spot from back here, but it is much more limited. I actually prefer going up over here. Even if you're just kind of out sitting next to this building, it's a little bit better because one of the things that it allows you to do is it allows you to spot up this line right here. And spotting up this line is incredibly important because it allows artillery to hit guys right here pretty easily because they have to cross through that lane. So right now you can basically spot through this area right here, but you could do the exact same thing, you know, sort of. Hang on, let me free look this one. Sort of by this building over here, either on either side. I like going up towards this bush here because you can use this as basically a passive spotting area. It's one of the few passive spotting areas that are still in the game, and spot into that area, which is what really allows your team to get shots. And so again, you did spot that guy moving through the front, but you have no idea. Whoa. That was entirely unexpected. Get him! Get him! You don't see, alright, the worst thing that you can possibly do is allow the other artillery to scout out your team. Go get him! Yeah, and like especially when the artillery knows the general area that you're in, you don't necessarily want to hang out in that same area simply because if they're going to be focused on that side, you're going to have other issues. Although their team seems more than willing to just drive up into where you can get shots on them. And again, either of these guys you can still push, either the IKV and or the artillery. See how their experimental was coming down there? Like you're watching that because these guys are not in a super great position where they are at. But their team is not either. The problem is that you've got some ISOs in front of you, you're just not really taking advantage of it quite yet. Like you should be shooting these guys. Yeah, shoot down that building. You can. You didn't really need to reload there. You gotta watch because you're sort of bleeding out in this middle, and you're taking a little bit too much time. Like you didn't need to clip to kill that GW Panther, for example. That's not a good shot. He's sort of behind that rock. See how they're starting to come around behind your team? Like this is what you need to be watching whenever you're playing a mid position, especially in a faster tank. You're always wary about your team getting into bad positions. So see how this guy's come around here? If you can clear this out faster, you can prevent that stuff from happening. Like that T-34 is not breaking the game. Like this GW Panther is not breaking the game. You can play through here and get to the back and prevent your guys from getting shot in the back. You're just taking too much time to actually do so. And you have to sort of avoid that. Oh, look at that armor. Oh, made up for shot number 2. And then what you really want to do is you want to come back, loop back through here and help out your guys before they die if you possibly can. Like making this run through here isn't necessarily going to be super helpful, especially since you're reloading. Chasing down artillery is all well and good, but that's not going to save your guy over here, and that's really what you should, in theory, be more concerned about. Rule number 2. Don't drive straight in front of him. Alright, and that was fine. Uh-oh. Run away. Run away. Luckily, you do have a reasonably short reload. So you can, if you go around, so one of the things that you want to do, particularly when you're brawling like this, especially in these tanks with long reloads, just auto aim on him and then just drive. Drive around the building to make it so that he can't shoot you the whole time. And ramming him wasn't necessarily useful because you were going to be loaded anyways and that shot was going to kill him. And then again, like, see these guys coming in one at a time. See this guy here, all you have to do is just stay back here and just basically clip him out here. You don't need to charge this guy at all.
Enemy armor is hit. Penetration. Enemy is hit. I don't see the target.
And then I'd go ahead and reload. And then you don't want to stay near the cap. You want to actually push out, probably back through the middle towards their Cromwell. You always want to go to the point of least resistance first in most cases. I don't think that you're going to be able to cap out because if any of those tanks came back, they'd be able to stop you. Although, who knows? Let's see. This is probably a little bit too roundabout of a path to get there, but it doesn't look like their team is very forward anyway. So you're looking to slow down their speed, right? You're not really going to be able to save those guys. You don't know where the 3001 is. See how this IS-2 came back? So there was no cap in any case. So you do need to press through this middle area here, which is what you probably should have done from the beginning rather than take the longest way around. A lot of times the shortest route is the best route, unless you are lit for some reason. And then you can push and clear here. Aim it. Aim it. Oh, we found the 3002D. Aim it, my man. Take your time. Oh, you're not going to be able to kill him. Run away. And then again, use these buildings. Oh, don't ram him. You gotta get away from your tendency to ram tanks. That's ramming tanks. It's not to your advantage. And then run away. No, you want to run out. Now you want to run out to this south area here. Now you don't want to go back through the middle. And again, now whenever you're playing against heavies, is playing against these guys at range. So what you do not want to do is engage them at close range. You don't want to push through this middle and turn a corner and run into them. You want to stay out someplace high, preferably on a hill, where you can spot them coming and then use your range against them. Which is exactly what's happening here. Ruh-roh. I don't know why you're trying to do whatever it is that you're trying to do. Oh, just fire. Just fire and hope that you get it. So again, what do you not want to do in this situation? You see that people make this mistake all the time. When you are in a light tank and you are up against heavy tanks, you don't want to get closer. You never want to get closer. Getting closer is not what you want. Getting closer doesn't give you any advantages. What are your advantages as a light tank? We say this in every single one of these replay reviews. You have speed. You have camo. Usually you have a vision advantage. In this particular case, you most likely have a vision advantage. So all you got to do is just break out or go someplace where you're on a hill. Even if you're just sort of sitting on this hill right here, right? You'll spot these guys come in. You'll be able to shoot them from range. If they get on cap, you can position yourself to shoot them, to spot them and shoot them from range. If they, right? What you don't want to do, what you never want to do is be like, all right, it's just me and a heavy. Let's get into close quarters combat. Like that's always a sort of bad situation. So you want to avoid that. And even when you saw that IS-2 there, you had an opportunity to run away and you stopped. You're just like, oh, I got this. Don't worry. And this is the analogy that I always make. Like, you know, I am a rather small guy. You know, I'm not a very big person. I don't want to fight Mike Tyson in a phone booth, right? I don't want to be anywhere near where you know, if I'm fighting Mike Tyson, I don't want to be someplace where he can physically lay his hands on me. I want to fight him from as far away as possible. And that's the same thing when you're a light tank. Like this guy's Mike Tyson, and you're like, oh, I can take his punch. Like he's getting old, man. I don't think he can punch that hard. I guarantee you, he can punch you hard enough. So you want to be as far away from this guy as possible, because that's where all of your advantages lie. And given the way that they were coming in, if you just sat back, you probably would have been able to spot them and take them out. So one of those things about that late game that you always want to recognize. The other thing is that in that early game, you were just far too passive for what you were matched up against. You know, that GW Panther there shouldn't have been a serious threat. That IKV that was here shouldn't have been as serious of a threat. And then again, whenever you're playing that mid-roll, you always want to look in the sides and see how you can help out your sides, because that's really what you needed to do. They were vulnerable to a flank, and you could have potentially prevented that if you had cleared out through the middle and then come up and prevented those guys from flanking your guys, which meant that these guys might still be alive, which means that it's a relatively easy way to win the game. Alrighty, so if we look at the stats, you didn't get a whole lot out of your team, but I mean, it's not like either team did particularly spectacularly. Wait, let's see how many people their GW Panther spotted. Oh, he only spotted one. Oh man, that's a fail spot by the GW fail scout. Otherwise, I thought you did pretty well. You should, in most cases, not try to ram people in a T-71, even if they are other light tanks, in particular if they're German light tanks, simply because they're typically much heavier than you, and that's not a trade that you're gonna do pretty well on. But otherwise, GG, nice try. You probably could have won that if you just played it a little bit further away. A little bit more aggressive in the beginning, a little bit less aggressive at the end. Ah, Mike went out there for a second. GG, nice try. Alright, so next we'll look at TheDarkRequiem's BatChat game. Alrighty, so top tier. This is not such a good BatChat map. I do like playing through these mid lines to start because you can get shots into their guys that try to push through this middle pretty easily, particularly when you're in a clip tank. And so the best place to set up is actually on this corner right here and then move forward. And if they haven't pushed guys through here, then you can get some shots in here if they set up guys over there. Because that distance is enough where you can actually spot across, depending on how good your opponent's camo is. And you can always just use this you can always use this wall right here as cover, so you just scoot back to the inside. You'll see a lot of fast tanks play the north. I don't find that it's very effective at all. It is just a little bit too open, and most teams are reluctant to cross. You can push across here. I don't necessarily think that's a good thing in the early game. Again, because it's the same thing, and so what you're doing is what I like to counter from either side. Like this position is easily countered from down here, just like this position is easily countered from down here. So you have to be careful of that, because once you get lit, right, these guys have a narrow window to shoot you, but these guys have an unlimited window to shoot you, right? And so that's always the limitation of playing this particular area. But you didn't have anybody counter you, so you got away with it. But again, keep in mind, like if I'm playing on the opposite team, you know, I most likely am able to spot you, right? And so basically where I will be is I'll be creeping up this wall right here on the side of this building to the point where I can spot you or get lit by you. And from this distance, right, that's not a very good distance. And so once you get lit here, the problem is that these guys, as I was saying, have a narrow window to shoot you because you can push back this way. But these guys over here can shoot you until you get all the way out, right? And that's sort of the problem with playing this position. But they're not countering you, so now it's time to go. You want to be careful, so you keep going back to this area where like people can shoot you, like you're still lit, man. You really like using the handbrake, again, particularly at these lower speeds, not really that useful. A little bit too much auto aim. So yeah, I don't think that was really worth it, to be quite honest. Because especially for like all that patent damage, you could have gotten that patent pushing forward. You very easily could have killed him from basically where that 30 is. And then so the other thing that you'll see often is that if for some reason you think this E100 is not going to be lit, then that's one thing. But from this range, right, getting 10 meters closer is not really going to help your shells penetrate any more than it's going to help you reload. And they're pretty far back, and see how they're moving in down here. So now you can move up here if you wanted to get shots down there. You do have to worry about these guys over there potentially spotting you, but they haven't shown them really the ability to do a whole lot. You don't necessarily want to push through this middle area here. You never want to be caught in the center of this. So if you come through this middle area here, you always want to be on the outside someplace, because that's where you're going to have the most actual cover. Although I suppose you like using the handbrake, so there's that. Give you another opportunity to use the handbrake. And again, one of the things about playing through this area over here is that if you control over here, you can get shots down this lane right here for free, as long as your guys light them. Aim a little bit more at the drive wheel, a little more to your right. Ruh-roh. No, and then again, one of the safest places on the map, even though it might not necessarily seem like it, is this area right here. Right, you're gonna have to keep an eye out for that 1390, but he's gonna have to overexpose himself to get shots on you. Being back over here actually protects you a lot from getting shot from everywhere else. Like, you don't want to drive, or you want to stay out of the middle as much as possible. You want to stay on these edges as much as possible. How you have not been shot more is beyond me. And so like when you're playing the margins like this, where you're trying to basically stay outside of people's range, it's very difficult to do in a sort of cramped condition like the middle of this map is. Unfortunately, you are losing on the south, and one of the reasons why, if you're going to own the middle, you should come here is because as these guys try to press through there, you can counter them. Because right now your team is losing without you. And then this is the other thing, is like, you'll notice this a lot when people relocate in clipped tanks. If you've made the decision to relocate, you don't know it, but you should have also made the decision to reload, because it's going to take you about that long to get into a better position to fight these guys. Like, if you're going to use those shots soon, that's one thing. I suppose it worked out for you, so you showed me. Again, though, you're not shooting or fighting anybody who's really hurting your team. You're being more and that was the total hope shot, but again, it worked for you, so them's the breaks. Yeah, you're just playing a little bit too much on the margins here. You're not actually doing anything that will help your team. Like, a lot of this game is you're trying to put yourself in a situation where you're hurting the enemy team's progress against your team. And if you're not doing that, then you've got other problems. So, like, see how these guys are starting to push on your guys over there? It's creating all sorts of issues for you guys. Gotta win someplace, boys. Gotta win someplace. I don't know why he doesn't just shoot you, but alright. And then again, like, up here, potentially have a chance to do something. Down here, these guys are still alive. And then you can't go through the back here because you don't want to take these guys on frontally. Or you don't want to take these guys. So I'm not entirely sure what you think you're doing here, because you're basically, for the first 2 minutes of the game, let's say 3 minutes of the game, you kind of sat in the middle, and then for the last 3 minutes of the game, you've really just kind of driven around in circles. Like, have some sort of idea of what you want to do. Like, is your idea, hey, you know, like let's look at it this way. What are you doing here? Like, what is your idea? Your idea is, hey, as these guys come in, I'm going to bleed them out. They have too much health for you to actually be able to bleed them out. So you, like, hanging out here and spotting them through this bush is not going to be necessarily helpful, because at the ranges that we're talking about, as soon as you fire, you're going to be lit. And that's a sort of a bigger problem. Well, you went through that Type 5 frontally. Like, you're kind of hoping that those shots go through. Side turret on the E100. That's a good shot. No, no, the other E100. I guess we can take this guy out. Look at that. I guess the heat shells are more powerful than I thought. And then run away, run away, run away. So that, again, worked out better than I expected it to. But I think there's a little bit of RNG magic there. Again, look how weak this field is. Look how much of a difference you could have made out here. So at this point, I would just get on cap and try to see what happens, because these are slow tanks, right? If you put 2 on cap, like, that could potentially win the game for you. Row. The HE fire magic is real. Alright, so wow. Okay. a couple of things. So what I was about to say is you need to take your time. He's fired, you've got time. Make sure that you aim all the way in and get the shots, get the damage that you need. You could potentially run away from this guy if you wanted. The E100 is not a threat to you. But this guy is. There you go. So the second shot, you aimed very well. The first shot, probably could have done a little bit better job on that. But. So you do need to try to hunt down. So this E100 has 2200 health. You're not really going to have a chance against him, even if you did have a full clip. But the JT is almost dead. So instead of pushing the E100, you should be pushing the JT, particularly since the JT is a non-turreted tank destroyer. So I'm not entirely sure why you are pursuing the E100. That doesn't seem like the bestest of plans. You always have to keep in mind that the BatChat does have limited number of ammos. So again, not entirely sure what you want to accomplish here. And you've got one of each shell type left, which is not a good situation. Which again is my argument for always using all APCR in the BatChat. It's just not really that useful to carry the heat at all. It just makes it so that you end up with odd heat clips. Again, you're not going to be able to kill the E100. Like, you need to recognize that. But you could have, in theory, killed the JT. The good news is the Waffle did a shot of damage to the E100. The bad news is you're still not going to be able to kill the E100. No, especially if you're ramming. Okay, so what should you have done? Like, you gave up on that game, like, pretty much when that patent came through the middle. You're just like, screw it. I'm not really gonna participate in trying to win this game. But what should you have done? Like, even if you play through that middle, which again I feel is easily counterable, but it worked for you, so that's good. You got some shots on their guys down there, and fantastic. But then you kind of hung out there a little bit too long. That patent got a couple shots on you that you really didn't need to take. Again, where that patent came through is very easily counterable by playing through any of these spawns as well. And then you got to see what's going on the outside of the maps and where you can potentially win. You basically kind of hung out in the middle area and on the margins far too much, rather than actually using the fact that this is not an entirely bad map for a BatChat, because the BatChat doesn't do very well at range anyways, so it does much better in these sorts of brawling situations. But particularly, and then again in that late game, like, you made a decision to pursue after their E100 for unknown reasons. Instead, you should have pushed the JT and forced the E100 to come to you, especially when you have a limited number of shells in your clip. So I feel like this is a game that you probably could have won if you had just made more of an impact, if you had just made more of an effort to save your teammates. But that's just not how you decided to play it for whatever reason. Alright, so if you look at the stats, the good news is you did a lot of damage. The bad news is that most of it wasn't super meaningful. But AK is nothing to sneeze at, so GG, nice try. Alright, and next. Oh, please hold. Okay, and next we'll look at Midnightgun's KV4. I thought I heard a timer. Oh, okay, here we go. Alright, so KV4, Prok, 1 big RD. So I still find it most useful even on encounter to play through this 6 line simply because your opponent will still play the hill. But we'll see where you go. And again, this is a map where playing in these heavy tanks, a lot of times your role is really just to soak arty shells and things like that. Well, the KV4 is not a bad tank. So it looks like you're going to play the 0 line, which isn't super great in a heavy tank, particularly on encounter mode, because there's not a whole lot of impetus for them to drive over here. So see how you don't really have anyone playing the 6 line? That's where you should be, because that was where you'll be most useful for shooting up here. Not entirely sure what you're shooting at there. They do have a light tank on cap. Probably in, this is not the right size for this, but probably in these buildings back here. The map area icon is not entirely accurate on these encounters. You're shooting a lot of indestructible houses, so you're just kind of wasting some ammo. Like, if you want to be constructive, there are houses you can shoot down, but for the most part, there's a lot of solid houses. So, like this house right there, you can potentially shoot down, but this house isn't nearly as useful as you might think. So, the interesting thing about where people typically set up on the cap, people typically set up on the cap. See this building right here and this bush right here? They'll set up behind here. Now the interesting thing is that's actually counterable. You can counter snipe, you can camo snipe that area from over here, and I'll show you basically where to go. So basically what you want to do is you want to come up through this ditch right here, and then see where this bush is? You basically want to drive to this bush right here, and then you can shoot behind this house, which is where a lot of people will set up to get. You don't need to spot him, you just fire through there, it'll reset him, and GG. And so the reason why you want to go out over here is that if you come up over this hill, it's pretty easy for them to spot you. But if you come around here, even if you have crappy tank like this, then you'll still be able to get those shots. So once again, the shot that you're looking for is right through there, through this bush, essentially. If you want, you can get higher on this hill, but it's not necessary. Oh, looks like you are lit. And again, being lit, you do want to be very careful here. You just don't have 6 seconds, which is why I didn't know that you were lit. And again, there's a yellow house there, which in this case is helping him. Oh, get him! Get after him! There's a rock. No. Go, if you... So, where he's at right there, what you want to do is you want to aim just a little bit behind him, and then just wait. He'll go back through your reticle, and then you'll be able to get that shot on the back of him. And then, so you want to be careful turning out here, because see how your side turret is now to these guys? And again, this is the reason why the 6th line is important, because they're here to punish the line that you're on, as well as Artie. Oh, too far forward. Luckily, and then see how this SU-100M1 is here? Like, this is that position that I was saying that you can fire through to get those resets. So like, if you're this Type 59, you might have felt like you needed to YOLO through there to reset this guy, but you didn't. All you really needed to do is come over here and you can kill that guy. There's really no place for them to hide on that side. Take your time and get that shot. Like, you can kill him there. And then you don't want to push this hill. That's not going to be really profitable for you, especially since they still control that 6th line, because you're just going to get shot on the side a lot. Oh, you went all that way, and you didn't go aim down far enough at his lower glaciers to actually deal damage. You're shooting too high. You're basically shooting into his upper glaciers, and that's not what you want to be doing here. The good news is Artie still has a shot at you, so you've got that going, and nobody on the 6th line is shooting at you, despite the fact that they've got a bunch of guys down here and not a whole lot else to do. So that's the good news. You can also shoot this T-34. So he's behind this building here, but you can come around over on this side a little bit. And now you're not really worried about getting shot by that guy, particularly as the IS-3 goes across there. You do want to clear out these guys that are milling around the 6th line and not actually doing anything. Again, take that T-34 out. That should be your priority, because that resets cap pressure. And again, as I was saying, like, you're trying to shoot at a very small window here. If you just come over on this side, you can shoot into the back of that T-34 for free. Again, those buildings that you're shooting at are not destructible. And so this is now the reverse of the situation of what you initially are looking for, which is basically the 6th line firing down to the 0 line. So the other thing that you eventually want to do, like this, what these faster tanks should do, is run this line right here, which allows you to clear out to this side, which allows you to then just sit anywhere on the hill. But you don't want to snipe in a KV-4. Russian heavies are not particularly good at sniping. So ideally, what you want to be able to do is drive up here and then basically see where these guys are brawling right now. Like, you want to be involved in that. Like, there's no reason for you to be firing at this T-29 right now. Your guy needs help, right? Right here, this guy, less armor, easier shot, hurting your team. Like, this is the type of you know, so much of the game that people miss is this idea of actually helping your teammates. Like, the reason why there's green guys and red guys is that the red guys are on the opposite team and the green guys are on your team. So what's good for the green guys is good for you. So helping this guy with this guy will help you. No, that guy is not hurting your team. And once again, you do want to get into that area where they were at. That's a much better fight for you. And then you're just doing a little bit too much sniping in a Russian heavy. And again, as we said, like, that is not the way to go. And your team is YOLOing into them for some reason. And then see how this T-29 is there? You should be focused on getting that T-29 down. Not showing. So see how you like came over here and you're giving him as much side as you possibly can. You're almost entirely perpendicular to him. Luckily, he's not a very good aim. He rushed his shot. Be a little bit more aligned with him. Like, this should be an easy kill. You also want to get as low on this hill as possible, which minimizes the guys on the 6th line shooting you, although most of those guys have faded back. You keep backing up here for some reason. Backing up doesn't make you more safe, right? So I'm not entirely sure why you keep doing that. You should be optimizing your aim, if anything, or your angling towards this guy. who's obviously shown that he's struggling a little bit. And again, you want to move forward here, you want to be up over here because that's going to protect you. Unfortunately, that IS-3 drove off the top there instead of just killing the type. Can't really push the type because, again, and this is what we've said many times, this 6 line is really important for covering the 0 line, right? Which is why you've been getting shot this entire game. You've not taken a lot of damage from the 0 line, you've taken a lot of damage from the 6 line. So that should always be your goal. And pushing across here is potentially risky, but since that Type 59 is pretty far down, he's not going to be able to spot you. You do want to try to clear him out. Your team had plenty of opportunities to win this game. For whatever reason, they drove off the cap and just didn't hold this side. Again, the east side of the map on encounter mode is significantly more important than the west side, simply because that is where the team goal is at. So teams that play the west side on encounter are always at a disadvantage. Ram him! Ram him! Ram him! Not entirely sure what you think you're doing here. Again, you don't want to continue to make yourself more of a target. Not when you rushed a little bit. Luckily, this guy's panicking too. Oh, here comes the ram now. Now you're like, oh yeah, I can ram him. Okay, that works. And then again, part of the reason why you want to be up on this wall here is that it affords you a lot of protection from artillery. And they're starting to make progress across this east-west barrier now. Again, that is an indestructible hill. So now you want to be close to this hill here. You're also wasting a lot of shells, but that'll happen. You can potentially go over to kill this T-71. The T-71 is vulnerable. The T-71 is vulnerable. He is all by himself. You know where he's at. Just go over there and kill him. Just go and kill him, my man. Just go and kill him. He's just a light tank. You got this. I have faith in you. Just go and kill him, my man. Just do it. You don't want to allow the enemy team to continually get in position. You don't want to allow the enemy team to get out of your range. Just go and do it, my man. Don't hesitate. When you have an advantage, don't hesitate. There was no reason for you not to be able to kill that guy. So the other thing is that, as we said, this area here, particularly once it becomes an east-west game, is the best area for heavies. Particularly Russian heavies, you don't want to be sniping with Russian heavies. They are not very good at sniping. Unfortunately, this is not looking well for your team. Anyhow, so in the meantime, we'll sort of talk about what we went. So you went to the 0 line, which I don't think is a very good idea. You didn't really have any presence on the 6 line, which ultimately hurt you because you had nobody really shooting these guys that were up there, the KV-3 or the Type 59. You were able to get some shots down here. For some reason, their team really wasn't shooting at you that much. But again, you'll notice that almost all the damage that you took was from these guys down here, and the artillery wasn't even firing at you. So one of the things is once you clear the hill, make it into an east-west game, control this side, control these tracks where you can prevent these guys from coming across. If your team basically just capped and screened, that's an easy victory, but unfortunately, pubbies don't believe in easy victories. You didn't get a whole lot out of your team, but I guess at this tier they did average. Anyhow, yeah, I feel like it's a game that you probably could have won. This shooting performance is pretty much what you expect from the ranges that you're fighting at. 12 of 34 is not a very good ratio, if you haven't guessed. And again, a significant part of that is this idea that you're basically sniping them. And the KV-4s are not very good sniping tanks. GG, nice try.